Hi, I am Lauren Golden. I'm a University of Idaho Extension educator in Blaine County. And with me on this video is Jessica McAleese, who owns Swift River Farms in Salmon, Idaho. We want to thank you for registering for the Land Evaluation Field Tour. On behalf of the Cultivating Success program, we appreciate you taking the time to review these short videos before the tour. To jump right in, the topic of this video is natural resources. I will use this short video to prepare you for evaluating potential farmland in regards to the existing natural assets or conditions surrounding the farm that will likely dictate how you manage this farm. With this video, we will cover some basic information about soil, irrigation and water rights, the local growing season in the area, and microclimates that affect variations in soil and temperature that can potentially exist on one piece of property. This information is useful in developing a farm plan that matches zones within your property. Soil. On your field tour, you will learn how to gather a soil sample and send the soil sample off to a lab for analysis. A soil sample result is very useful in determining your local soil conditions. These results will essentially identify what type of nutrients are low in your soil and help you develop a nutrient management plan for your farm. For example, depending on how the soil has been used in the past, the basic nutrients of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium could be severely low. What is also useful from a soil result is looking at the percent of organic matter in your soil. This information can help you decide on implementing a compost, cover crop, or grazing strategy that can help you achieve optimal soil health. We recommend you take soil samples either every year or every other year or every couple years. Take these samples around the same time each year, either fall or spring, and do it within the same month. By doing this every year or every couple years, you can compare results to see how your soil is improving. This information can be vital to the overall success of what crops you are producing and ultimately trying to sell. Today we hear more and more about soil health. Well, what is that exactly? There are lots of conditions within the soil that affect soil health, such as soil texture. Is your soil compact? Is it rocky? Or does it have nice soil aggregates or small clumps that easily allow crops to thrive in? Or does it hold moisture well, and does it hold nutrients? A big part of soil health really comes down to the organic matter content in your soil. High organic matter means that nutrients and water are less likely to leach out of your soil. Let me say that again. High organic matter means that nutrients and water are less likely to leach out of your soil. This means your soil can hold nutrients longer in the root zone, as well as that vital soil moisture. This organic matter is also food for the soil microbes in your soil. These soil microbes are another huge component of soil health, because they essentially help recycle, break down, and release nutrients in your soil to make them available to your crops. In this slide, I highlight different ways for amending your soil that can add nutrients, but also add organic matter. In the top left corner, we have a top dressing of home compost, and right next to that is a large-scale application of animal manure compost. This happens to be dairy manure compost from the Magic Valley, because that is obviously one of our abundant resources here in South Central Idaho. You could apply manure or compost depending on what is readily available. Compost is more stable, meaning you can expect the nutrients to release slower over the season, which means the nutrients are less likely to leach out of your soil. In contrast, nutrients in manure are readily available right after application, but perhaps not when your crops are ready to take them up. Depending on what you use, do some research of your source, because the type of animal or home compost system will determine the amount of nutrients within that product. You could even ask your source to take a sample of their product for analysis to give you a better idea of what nutrients you can expect from that application, or test it yourself if this is your home brewed stuff. Below this, we have a planting of cover crops, and next to that is the combined use of animals to graze cover crops. If animals are part of your operation, this can be a great way to provide multiple benefits to your soil. You have their manure and their hoof or other means for incorporation to help break down cover crop residue to release nutrients. You will see in your deeper readings for this video, there are 2 publications on cover crops specific to Idaho. One for species selection and one for properly grazing cover crops in Idaho. As we think about our field tour, remember that you are utilizing what soil conditions already exist and finding out ways to help improve that soil for your production system, with organic matter being a big part of that goal. Next up is Jessica McAleese, again with Swift River Farms.
Thanks, Lauren. Let's talk a little bit about water. When evaluating any piece of land for agricultural use, whether it is for growing crops or raising animals, you must take water into consideration, especially here in the West. A good question to keep in mind is this: what type of water will you need and what will you be using it for? Maybe you need surface water for livestock, or perhaps flood irrigation to water your pasture. Maybe you need groundwater and a well for drip irrigation, or a pivot, K-pods, or other sprinkler type system. Maybe you need gravity-fed water because you don't have power to your property. Once you know what type of water you need and how you will be using it, you will also need to evaluate the water resources that may or may not exist on your property. Are there springs, hot or cold? How about irrigation ditches, streams, rivers, ponds? Maybe there's no water at all and a well must be drilled. Before you go dropping a pump into that creek or start irrigating out of the well, keep this in mind. Gone are the days when taking and using water from your land was as simple as dipping a cup into a spring. Nowadays in Idaho and throughout the West, you must have a legal right recorded with the state to take that water and use it. I know it sounds crazy, but that's simply the reality of farming and ranching in the West now. On our property, we found that we had a legal share of the water that runs through the ditches from April through October. However, we would only be able to use this water every 17 days or so, as we are part of a ditch system and would be rotating the use with many other water users along that ditch. Every 17 days. Think about that in an Idaho summer. Not ideal for raising vegetables and row crops, which need a little bit more water than that. So knowing we would be raising vegetables and knowing that we would need water more than every 17 days, and really knowing that we would prefer a clean, somewhat pressurized water system for drip irrigation, we decided to drill a well on the property and initiated the process to get a legal right to do so. Because while the property had a surface water right to the ditch, it did not have a groundwater right for irrigation. Fortunately for us, water rights are still being adjudicated or divvied out in our county, and we were able to navigate the application process for a new groundwater right for the land. It really wasn't difficult, but it certainly took some time, about 4 to 5 months, and was a series of hoops to jump through, including a public comment period. But we did all of this before even purchasing the land. We didn't want to buy land without having a legal right to the water that we would need to grow a successful farm. And the bottom line is this: know what water is available on the property, know what you're going to need it for, and then just do your due diligence. Know whether or not you can legally take that water. And if you do those 3 things, and the Department of Water Resources is a great place to start, then you will surely grow a successful farm or ranch armed with that knowledge. The growing season. This seems like a no-brainer. However, you would be surprised to hear of so many new beginning or transitioning farmers and ranchers who enter into a farm enterprise or a new farm and ranch with little or no idea of the possibilities or realities of what can be grown on that land. As a farmer, I can tell you without a doubt that it is in your best interest, your interest of time, of labor, of heartache, of money, of everything in between, to do your homework. Find out what can be grown in the area. What are the seasons like? When is the first frost? When is the last frost? What are the wind patterns like? What are other people growing? And more importantly, why are they growing it? One of the best things to do is to start asking your neighbors to tell stories. Ask the old timers what works and what does not. They will be happy to tell you. Ask about historical floods, epic storms. If it's springtime, ask about the winters. If it's wintertime, ask about the springs. Go down to the county extension office and sit down with your extension educator or NRCS and sit down with the agent there and ask as many questions as you can possibly think of. They are a resource that is there to help you sort things out. And always seek out other farmers or ranchers in your area. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for some advice. I know that from personal experience, when I first started farming, I leaned upon other farmers and ranchers like nobody's business. They were so tremendously helpful in helping getting me started on the farm. And I am more than happy to do the same. It's really important that all of us farmers stick together and that we support each other. So don't even hesitate to ask questions. So when you finally do purchase or lease land for your farm dream of, I don't know, raising pineapples and bananas in the heart of Idaho, you'll at least have not a single doubt of the realities of this endeavor. One of the best ways to really start to understand a piece of land and the role that you will play as a farmer or rancher is to walk that ground. Take a notebook, grab a pencil, and start walking. Make observations, take your time, and draw pictures, take notes. Are there hills or other features? Are there trees, potential windbreaks? Is there standing water? Are there high points of the property? Are there ponds, rivers, or streams? What kind of plant life is growing? And you don't have to be a scientist or a plant biologist. Don't be intimidated by this process. What you're doing is making observations. What patterns of vegetation do you notice? Are there lush areas? Are there areas that are more barren where shorter plant life is growing? You know, we found that simply walking the piece of land that would eventually become our full-time farm was the most useful activity we could have done before purchasing the land. We found that clover, alfalfa, and dandelions grew really well on the 10 acres that we bought versus the sedges and grass that grew around us. We dug about 1 million holes and took lots of soil samples. And what we found was that under the clover, alfalfa, and dandelions, we had rich, deep topsoil, about 18 to 24 inches of really consistent soil. Whereas under the sedges and grasses that grew really short, those were really high in clay and very, very difficult soils to deal with. So we kind of got to cherry pick the 10 acres that we ended up purchasing. On the field tour, you will walk. You will learn how to evaluate topography and what that means for little local microclimates on the farm. But ultimately, you'll learn how to walk a piece of land and in order to learn how to steward that land. And that's really what's important. On the bottom part of this slide, the one with all the snow, that's some land that we used to lease before purchasing our land. And it was a really great spot. The landowners were very, very generous for us to be able to farm there, but it was right along the river. And in the winter, the ice jams would get so bad that it would start flooding out the property. And you'll notice that there's probably about 2 to 3 feet deep of water and ice on the property in the heart of January. And you know, we're really happy not to be along the river anymore. It makes a huge difference in our peace of mind and the overall health of our farm. So take your time, learn to walk, and learn to grow a really successful farmer ranch.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, this concludes the natural resource video for the Land Evaluation Field Tour. Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoy your tour.